I'm going to cover, I won't go back over the ground,
Okay.
it's already been covered, but I want to just cover public procurement.
Yep.
And particularly we have a submission sent to us from the Irish School of Arts Supply Federation and from the SME sector on concerns they have over current government procurement policy. Because I think I saw in your opening statement there's an aim to save 500 million over a period of 3 years. And while no one would have a concern and would wish that you would achieve that, I suppose it's the underlying concerns and the issues to small to medium enterprises that we would be concerned about. So from the outset, I'd just like to start with how much have savings have been made so far of that 500 million?
We had a target of 127 million for this year, for 2014. So we're confident that we'll save around 100 million or so of that saving for this year. So we're fairly confident that we make the savings in respect to 2014. In effect, the Office of Government Procurement has been established, and they're now procuring more and more of the categories of the types of spend for parts of the system. So they're in effect now implementing their work programme. So we say 100 million will be the savings for this year, and then over the 3-year period, so by the end of 2016, we've targeted savings of 500 million is what we're looking at. As the Deputy will be aware, for taking money out of procurement, that's going to have an impact on companies that were previously providing those services that might be getting less. Some of them may not win the new contract, or there might be issues around renewal contracts. So there is going to be concerns. There will be concerns here. There'll be a lot of noise around some of the implications of this. I haven't seen the submission you've received, so I'm at a disadvantage. I don't know what they're saying to you. What we're trying to do all the time, and we did it with Circular 1010, which we published in August 2010, and we've done it now through Paul's offices to provide more support to SMEs to enable them to compete with projects. We have, in terms of the stationary contract, which I think might be the subject of some of the correspondence you received, we broke it into 4 lots. So we haven't gone out with a big contract, we broke it into lots. We're using more framework contracts for providing more assistance and supports training for SMEs so that they can access contracts. So we're mindful of the type of representations you're receiving, but it's impossible to make savings in any part of the public sector without there being difficulties, without a constituency of some description being discommoded. But we're trying to deputy work as closely as we can with the different groups. We've had many discussions with IBEC and the Small Firms Association and the different representative groups and the different groups within sectors as well. So we're mindful of it, and we're on top of it, and we're happy to work with them in any way we can.
Yeah, but just on that point, you say it would save about 100 million saved so far, and you've acknowledged that there'll be difficulties with the groups involved in that. Now, what I don't understand, and you might be able to explain this to me, if you save 100 million, but a lot of these SMEs go to the wall, and there's job losses, well, what you're saving 100 million is social protection not picking up with the other hand.
In any, I'll ask Paul to come in and say, in any different sector, businesses might be dependent upon public sector contracts for a certain share of their business. We don't know in cases that they be so dependent that if they lose a contract, well then the business will close down or they lose jobs, but I'm sure that may happen in cases. In anything that we do where we've had to reduce spending, close the fiscal deficit, any of those initiatives has the potential to impact upon demand in the economy, impact upon jobs, and have a negative knock-on effect. So absolutely, and that negative economic effect can be seen then in the impact on tax revenues, or it can be seen in the impact on people who lose their jobs and are unemployed. So there can potentially be a negative effect, but we're trying to manage it as best we can. And when we discussed this previously at this committee, we mentioned that this programme will involve difficulties, absolutely. But we all know that the state has been traditionally, and we mentioned it, Deputy Fleming, has been procuring in an inefficient way, and we're determined to get value for money, for taxpayers' money, and we're determined to procure in the most professional way possible. And as part of what Paul is doing with his office, we're now professionalising procurement across the system, and we're ensuring we have the best possible expertise. We're going in there and negotiating the best possible contracts. But absolutely, Deputy, this will have an impact, and there will impact on certain businesses, and we're doing everything we can to minimise the effects, but I'm not going to say there'll be no effects, because that would be untrue to say.
I'll come back just to the value for money element of it in a second. But I just wonder, you know, with the way you're going now at the moment, you'll achieve your savings, and that'll be a success for your department.
Yep.
But is there consultation with the Department of Jobs and Enterprise or Social Protection to see the wider picture here? Because the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we'll save our €500, 500 million, no matter what happens, and we don't care who goes under the bus. Am I wrong on that?
Well, we're not saying we don't care who goes under the bus. And of course, we've had discussions with Enterprise about seeing can the Enterprise Ireland support agencies help companies that are. But maybe Paul, maybe we should add something.
Perhaps I should intervene at this stage. I think you raise a number of issues there, Deputy. Perhaps I can give a bit of a flavour. First of all is, in relation to the proportion of spend we're targeting to save each year, it's of the order of about 2.5% to 3% is what we would actually be looking to save. Yes, there will be winners and losers in that regard, but the winners will create employment and create jobs. Okay, losers will have to contend with loss of business. There's no doubt in relation to that. We are looking at this thing holistically, though. We are working on a number of different themes, and part of that is around engagement. And we have set up a high-level group in conjunction with the Department of Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation to drive and enable SME access to public procurement. And we're working with a number of agencies that sit within JEI in that regard, including Intertrade Ireland and Enterprise Ireland. And I chair a group that meets regularly to drive initiatives in that regard. The trusts we're working on are things like information and education. So, for example, we ran in 2013 two very large Meet the Buyer events where SME businesses could come in, meet public sector buyers and try and understand public procurement better so that they can compete and win business from the public sector. And we had about 1,200 suppliers at the event in Dublin, and we had about 800 suppliers at the event in Belfast. So we are getting SME engagement with regard to looking at how to win public procurement. As we centralise more, there's always the risk that people feel crowded out. So we are working with bodies like Enterprise Ireland and Intertrade Ireland to help educate the suppliers around building consortia so that smaller businesses can come together and win the larger offerings that the state is putting out to the marketplace. We're working with Competition Authority as well to keep everybody safe in that regard. So there's a lot happening here in terms of the education front. This year we will be transposing the new European directives, which are very business friendly and very SME friendly, into law, and that they will come into force next year. As part of that, though, we have engaged with industry. We set up a working group of the group we have with JEI to engage with Small Firms Association, Chambers Ireland, IBEC, etc., to actually get their input into how we can better shape procurement, because we want to make sure that SMEs can be successful in public procurement. We're also changing our systems and investing in our systems. So as again, we take some of the bureaucracy out of public procurement. We standardise more. And the Secretary General mentioned the Department of Finance Circular 1010, which was to promote SME access. And we're currently in the process of reviewing that circular with the backdrop of the new EU directives and seeing what measures now we can accelerate to again reduce barriers for SME and enable access for SMEs to compete for business in the public space. So we expect that we'll be in a position to produce a new circular in the next month to 2 months, again to give guidance and give set rules for the public sector to enable SMEs to better compete for business.
Yeah, and just one thing you said there at the start, you said under this process there'll be winners and losers. And when there's change, I have no problem with that. But I suppose the fear from the SME sector is, well, the winner is some big, large, global company with finite, unbelievable resources. They can come in with a crazily low bid for public procurement products and blow everyone else out of the water. Now, the winner there, in my mind, is someone who really doesn't give a hang for Irish Jobs or anything like that whatsoever can come in and win this contract. You as a department are focused on the fact that you want to make these savings. They're going to win that contract. And let's just take the Irish Schools Federation, who are supplying to small schools. They can't compete at that. They simply can't compete at that level. And you made a point of to help the SMEs better understand how public procurement works. I don't think that's the issue. I think they just can't tender. It isn't competitive to do it. And I'm just wondering how you're going to move this forward. It's not telling them how to do it. It's making it possible for them to do it, is what the question really is. Because the other issue I'd want to raise with you as well, and you might answer this, is the quality of service that we're now bringing in. I mean, what is your quality control on this? I mean, for instance, you take the Art Suppliers Federation. They work with an awful lot of schools. They've built up a commitment and a relationship. The school knows what they're getting. There's an after-sales element of value for money and the quality of products that they're getting. So what, in your remit now going forward, is going to provide that same service to these schools that, yes, they might be getting their product an awful lot cheaper, but what else are they getting with that as well?
Okay, I think there's a couple of questions in there, Deputy. The first is in relation to access, and I think your point is that, as I understand it, that SMEs, the offerings will be so large that SMEs can't actually, they're too big for them to compete. I think it's important to reflect on the data we have available, which is not fantastic, but the data we have available to us indicates that less than 3% of the tenders, and this is the data from 2011, less than 3% of it are above threshold, which means that the amounts you're talking about that are being tendered, 97% of those amounts in those businesses are actually less than 125,000. So a huge amount of business that the state puts out to the marketplace is actually relatively small. It's only 3% from 2011 statistics that is in excess of 125,000 for goods and services. In works, it's much bigger in terms of 4 million. So there's a huge amount of small business that the state puts out to the marketplace and will continue to put out to the marketplace. I disagree in part with what you said in relation to the hunger for information. Certainly a lot of the information we've had fed back to us from the sector is that a lot of bidders need information around how public sector procurement works. They need to understand how to answer the exam question, because public procurement is very, very predictable. It asks very standardised questions. And so one of the things we do as an organisation is we support the companies that are engaged through people like Intertrade Ireland and Enterprise Ireland to support businesses, that we provide direct support to those in the education of buyers. Your last question is in relation to quality control. As part of the rollout of my new office, we are standardising our contracts more, and we will be putting in place much more standardised processes for managing all suppliers and holding their feet to the fire in relation to performance. We discussed performance earlier under another guise. But part around this is we do need to manage all of our suppliers to a good quality standard. We are not simply focused on price, and in fact our guidance as an office out to the public sector is to evaluate tenders on what's called the most economically advantageous price, which basically brings into play both price and quality. So this is not around compromising quality in any way.
But just would say now, for instance, if a group of small to medium enterprises came together and they put in a tender for a job, we'll say, and someone else comes in, much larger organisation with a much reduced price, do you even investigate why they're coming in so much cheaper?
It's a good question. I think we do encourage consortia, and we're seeing consortia win more business in the Irish marketplace at this moment in time. The question, though, is if somebody comes in with a significantly less price than the average, do we investigate it? Absolutely we do. We're obliged under the guidance from the EU to investigate what are called abnormally low tenders, and we have to satisfy ourselves that the supplier can in fact provide the goods and services at the prices indicated. So we have to go through a process of due diligence in that regard.
And what's the trigger there? how low does the price have to be before you say, wait a second, there's a problem here?
It is,
Or there's something worth investigating?
it is down to, there's no specific formula, Deputy, in relation to that, because it very much depends upon the market as to what might be, what might appear to be abnormally low. So, and some of that depends just how competitive the markets are. But where there is a significant deviation from the mean, most contracting authorities would investigate that and go through an abnormally low tender process, so that they protect themselves to make sure that the goods and services meet the quality and that the prices can be sustained all the way through the contract.
But that, with all due respect, that answer is quite vague in that it's, yeah, we'll look at it, but we may not look at it, and it depends on the product, and it depends on who's doing it. Is it you that's charged with doing that, or who in your department says, I'm going to keep an eye on this?
At this
There's
moment,
checks and balances.
At this moment in time, the Office of Government Procurement is rolling out.
Yeah.
So our amount of spend coverage at this moment in time is only about 5% out of the total 100. At the end of the transition process, which should take the most of this year, we should be at about 60%. So at that point, we will cover most of the spend within the state. So at this time, the reason why the answer you may feel is a bit vague is a lot of this is comprehended by guidance which we have issued to the current set of public sector procurers out there, who are many in thousand in terms of what they're doing. So it's very hard to be absolutely specific, and so a lot of our guidance notes give guidance in that regard, but it's very hard to actually bring it down to a granular, this is the rule in relation to something like abnormally low tenders.
But I suppose the concern there is, though, if you're after losing out in a tender to an extremely low price, and you don't know of the formula, and you don't know how to report this, or you don't know how it's been policed, for the want of a better word, when are we going to give certainty to the smaller SME sector that, look, this is what's going to happen, this is protocol, this is what's going to happen? Yeah,
I think this is where, and it's analogous to what the Secretary General already mentioned, is, you know, accounting officers are accountable today for their spend and for the contracts that they award and the performance of those contracts that they award. And that responsibility will transfer to me and my office during the course of this year for the goods and services we take in. But each individual entity, public sector entity, is today charged with the responsibility for ensuring value for money, and that contracts that award do perform. And that's why they do go through this process of investigating abnormally low tenders when they do occur, because their feet are held to the fire in terms of accountability.
Yeah.
If they award a contract and it doesn't perform.
And can I ask, just, I know your office is just rolling out now because you were with OPW, you've now moved into deeper now. Is there many in your office, will say, working on this at the moment?
Working on which...
With public procurement in your office, we'll say.
Yeah, at this moment in time, what has happened is the current office size is approximately 55, of which it is an amalgamation of the people who transferred from the National Procurement Service, who were of the order of about 40 people, of which about 25 are actually doing procurement today.
So there's 25 doing procurement today?
But as we roll out the new office, the dimensioning of the procurement aspect will be approximately 140 people to manage that 60% of spend. And we're actually recruiting people from within the public service today to bring those skills into the centre and into the new Office of Government.
And just of those 25 now, is there many or anybody with SME experience?
With SME experience, of course. I mean, some of the areas we procure today from the Office of Government Procurement include the big stuff like energy, so the energy companies, but all the way through to stationery. So the stationery contract is managed by my office. The janitorial supplies are managed by my office. So there is a mix of both large and small procurements that are managed from the Office of Government Procurement today.
But the people with actual SME experience are working within that office now who understand from a business perspective how this all works?
Absolutely. Part of the procurement responsibility and capability is the real value add that procurement people bring to a process is the understanding of the market, how it's structured, what the models are, what the commercial models are in that context, how competitive it is, how fragmented or concentrated it is, because that's where they really add value, is figuring out how do we work with the market to deliver the best possible value for money for the state. So some markets like energy are very concentrated. There's maybe 5 or 10 players in the Irish marketplace. Telecoms, maybe 20, 30. When you get into, say, cleaning services, you have a mix of national companies and local companies. So it's a lot of horses for courses. But a big piece of the responsibilities for procurement is around understanding those markets for the goods and services you're buying, and then tailoring our approach to the market to get the best value for the state.
Would it be just possible to get an actual figure, though, of those 25 who actually have SME experience, who worked in small business? Would that be possible?
Worked in small business?
Worked in small business, yeah.
The majority of the staff within the existing function would be from the OPW, so some of them are civil servants, but we have recruited some people in the past who are previously from business, but we can supply that information.
I just want to know of the 25 people who actually have SME experience, who are actually working on this, who know what small businesses are going through at the moment, because, and I understand, just finally, this is something that's been rolled out now, but my final question is, what comfort can you give this morning to the SMEs and the Irish Art Supply Federation that their concerns are being listened to and that they are involved in the process and been rolled out in within the next 3 to 6 months?
I think, let me come back to in relation to that question, Deputy, we have an engagement process with a working group that has been set up from my office with the key representative associations for business, from IBEC through to SFA, through to Chambers Ireland. So that is the mechanism we're working with industry at this moment in time to give a voice to the changes we know we have to make to public procurement. We want to make these changes to enable SME businesses to be successful, because ultimately we know that they're the engine room of the economic recovery.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I just add very, very briefly, Chair, that groups that come to yourself or any other deputy have concerns, we're very happy to, as Paul said, very happy to meet with them, to explain what we're doing, work with them. Obviously, if it's part of a live competition, we need to be careful, but generally we're very happy to meet with any group's deputy. So, you know, that invitation is there. I'm very happy to hear their concerns, hear their side of the story, explain what we're trying to do and work with them.
Okay.
Thank you.